Ain't nobody got time for that. Just separating the character from the background. Stupid gradients. You really don't need any excessive shit. Any excessive shit. Any excessive backgrounds. Um, Background work when you do character design. I can't stress that enough. Sometimes a simple clean background does a lot for showcasing the character specifically. Okay, so there's that. Should have made the background gray. My bad. Alright, let's let the colors pop. If you choose a colored background, what happens to the character design is that the palette becomes less focused and more of a wash. You use washes when you do landscapes. Right back, everyone write that back at me. When you do landscapes, that's when you think about washes. But when you're doing a single standing character, you're not really incorporating any other environment other than the gray studio background. And that isn't a light environment. That's just a room designed to make this character pop. So if you're a photographer, a fashion photographer, and you're trying to showcase some colors in a certain piece of clothing, you don't share the colors with the background. The background is either white, gray, or black, or some really low saturation color, specifically because you want to show off the fashion. So it's the same thing with a character design. You're showing off fashion, you're showing off poses, and that's something you guys really should think about. So the biggest thing, and a lot of stuff was critiqued on this image, and I'll go through this really, really quickly. It was just a thing I wanted to cover. Of course, the arm gesture is a bit stiff. The theme is a bit confused. He's a Frost Lord. Usually with Frost Lords, what we see is a blue color clothing with someone already critiqued. But I like this. I like how it's brown. I don't mind it at all. Like, why do his clothes have to be? Does he like dye his clothes? Does he have time to dye his clothes? He's blue, and that's enough. But does he have time to like dye his clothes so that he can be an Ice King? He doesn't have to have that cliche day old um, uh, blue clothing just so that he can represent the theme of winter. He can wear as many browns as he wants. It seems like he's a man of nature, so I don't mind that at all. I think this is a great choice. I think the leaves are a beautiful choice. You're really overlapping a lot of new themes, and I love that. The biggest thing though is something that has to do with the body. He is carrying a massive iron steel beam that can't be melted by jet fuel. Sorry, I had to say that for the cause. He's carrying a massive steel beam, and that it feels like his upper body really isn't capable of carrying something that massive. So what we want to do is push the upper body so that it could represent a tank body type. So a tank is basically massive upper body, smaller lower body. So if you want to see this in action in game design, think of the way they designed Scion from League of Legends and the way they designed Braum. Those are massive tank characters, and they have the exact same body type, large upper body. And because those characters, it's like an isometric. Is that what it is? Is that what Lord of the Rings? Is that what League play style is? It? No, it's not isometric, but it's on like an angle. It's like on a 2D, fake 3D angle. Well, the models are 3D. Anyways, in order for because you guys are so zoomed out in gameplay, you really have to exaggerate the proportions so that in gameplay it can really show off. You can show off the body type. If it's a mildly tank, it's not going to show up on screen. And if you're designing this for a movie, even further, even push this fact even further, you need to see that this body type is representing his role. So he's not some gypsy Jack Frost kind of dancer winter dude. He's a tank. He's bringing in the weight of winter with him. So you have to represent that in the way his body type kind of anticipates the use of this heavy weapon. So that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to make his body type, the weight of his body, lean upward. I don't know if this was covered in, see what you guys are saying. Yeah, you don't need warm clothes as Ice King. Illuminati confirmed. um, but I'm just trying to increase the size of his upper body. It looks almost cartoony, but trust me, it'll read. and the lower body here. I don't mind the gesture as I recommended in the notes. I don't mind the gesture of his foot. It seems logical, it seems right. When you have a tank, however, this comes from animation discipline. When you have a tank, what happens is that usually they're brawlers. They're all Brahmin, no brain. So yeah, he is a wise man, but you still want to show that in his youth he was some sort of big shot heavyweight. And you kind of want to push his head to be a little bit smaller, so that it seems like, and not just his head, his cranium. You want to push that to be a little smaller, just so that you can show it's all about muscles for him and his whole job description, his role. So before, very, very, what's infirm? Old and infirm. And then after, it feels like he can really carry that steel beam, no? Gypsy, Jack Frost kind of water dude, winter dude. I wonder where the codex is hidden with all the quotes that I've said in the past. You guys have recorded. Where is that located? Is it like located hidden with the Holy Grail? I've yet to see the list. I know there's one of you documenting it somewhere. Ow, fuck. You know when you're drinking tea and oh that hurt, fuck, and then you smack your tooth? Oh, stupid teeth. Um, for the staff length. The legs seem a bit short for the staff length. The staff isn't part of his anatomy, so I'm not sure why you're assuming his legs are too short. Can you explain a little further? The size of his legs seem a little bit. Kill your baby is probably at the top of that list. Smack your tooth. Ow, hey, so we're kind of alike. I'm just that boy and play Dota while also my painting is better. What do you mean, anti-cage? I often burn my tongue. So do you guys see the differences? Do you guys see how the weight has, distributing the weight up here has changed the character completely? It's changed our relationship as a viewer with the character. Because what it's done is it's given him the body type necessary to push the character's personality through. Remember, you don't have a background. You don't have a crown on the top of his head to show how much of a big shot he is. What you have to show is what his role is in his job, in his role in the MMORPG or wherever he's from. That he is the king of the frost, and I think that we need to represent his strength on that level. I won't spend any more on this, but a couple of little pointers here and there for maintaining 3D, casting some shadows. You probably want to highlight the high points on the metallic armor, and not just highlight them, but you gotta desaturate them. You can't let them be brown. Remember, that was the wash of your canvas from earlier. You want to show the difference in material. Just because he's wearing brown doesn't mean that the entire surface of his armor is brown. Give it the actual color of its material, which is a gray, gunmetal gray or whatever. And then because of the sides are reflecting toward the ow, my tooth. Fuck. My worst fear is breaking my teeth. Because of the side here is facing and it's reflective like a mirror. Facing the clothing, that's the only spot you bring in the color of the clothing because of the reflection. And that's it. So flatten the image. Before, after. Much cleaner character design. You don't want to submit this. If you're out to get jobs and you're out to get jobs for character design, do not give the viewer a hard time. Your viewer, the reason why I'm always referring to the viewer, you may say, I don't give a fuck about the viewer. Your viewer could be the one who hires you. So you kind of got to give a fuck about the viewer if you want to live off your art. And the viewer could be your employer, your future employer. So you gotta accommodate to them. This purple background isn't doing much. It's doing nothing. It's making it busy and making it messy and taking away from the real positive space where everything is happening. So don't add anything you don't need. If it's not adding anything to the form, if there isn't some sort of light ray gradient emanating here, causing this reflection, casting some cast shadows, if that's not happening in the environment, you don't have a light environment. Light environment is light. This is not an environment. This is not a replacement for an environment. I cannot stress this enough. Stop dressing up your backgrounds if it's a character design spreadsheet. All right? So before, after, look at the body weight. Feels a little bit more like an Ice King. If you wanted him to look old and infirm, you have to give him a cane. You have to give him something that suggests his graduated weakness in his development and his role. So there's that. Then we've got face, 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 environment, environment. All right, so let's look at these environments next. So we've got here an environment painting where the colors are quite muddy. Do you agree? Colors are quite muddy. So what you have here is shadows. So if this is, unless this is made of like chrome, or if it's made of like really, really dark material, we would have this object be this dark. Meaning, look at this, the background has got to be this dark. Oh, fuck that, I'll use this. Darken. The background has to at least be this dark. It has to be that dark in the day. Maybe there's like one little bomb that went off. Does it not match its environment now? But before, you had daytime, but you got this like cast shadows that make it feel like only the moon is out in the night because everything else is so dark, and the only thing that's bright is this. So this is a serious confusion that you have with light environments. And what you need to do, sorry if you guys hear some crazy screaming. It's my neighbors right across the other side of the wall. So what you need to do is, if this is reflective material, you got to make it, of course, you got to be more picky with how you create the reflective material, how you make it reflective. If he's got a ball right here in the center, I'm sure there's secondary light sources or rim light on the ball. The ball is highly reflective, just around here, and then a hot point. And when you have reflective material, you don't just make it shiny, you make it glow. Everyone write that back to me. Everybody forgets that. You add a glow. Because it's a mirror, it's reflecting an efficient ray, a collection, a bundle of light back. And that's the only way it'll really feel like it's glowing. Before, after. You can make it a smaller radius if you don't want to have that soft look. You want to have a continuous rough look. You can make it a smaller radius. Let it glow, let it glow. So anywhere else where this is happening, when we have, as in the form studies, we have pieces here. That face the light almost instantly. Just like that. You gotta find kind of where the bend is in the form. And then erase it. And you see how I'm using a hard brush, because I have to continue the edges, and the hard brush, that is not hard brush, an angled brush. This angled brush really helps me establish really, really strong edges. Okay, and then not just that, let it glow. Lower opacity. Sorry if my speed of my brush, my movement of my mouse is like making you guys feel sick. Sorry about that. Have that glow there. Now it really feels like a nighttime scene. It feels that the light environment feels appropriate to the level of darks you had. And the colors you were using were too saturated. So back to the muddy diagnosis. The colors you had were too muddy because you were misplacing two separated light environments from each other. You were giving me daylight colors on nighttime values. Everyone write that back at me and someone explain it to me. Somebody explain it, please. Depends on the light, yeah, but technically if we're getting that much exposure and it's that white as he drew it, there would definitely be some reflected mirroring the glow. Okay, so I'm just waiting for the write backs. You were giving me daylight colors on nighttime values. Absolutely. Daylight colors, not just colors, my bad. Daylight saturation, to be very specific. It's because when it's dark, the saturation of the colors goes down. Yes, XRen, beautiful. Lower values require colors of equal value. Thank you. The values were too dark for the daytime light. Yes, or the values were, or the background was too light for the daytime values. A dark time, nighttime values, dark time. The values are too dark for daylight colors and nighttime values. Remember the environment, or rather, your eyes don't perceive saturation so much. Not your eyes. It's the fact that there isn't enough light feeding the color to give it that to give it the necessary food for it to be to have that much color come out of it. The spectrum, the white, the rainbow is possible when there's white light. If there's no white light, there's no rainbow, there are no colors. All right, so we have this really, really nearby, this becomes a secondary light source and this becomes a primary. We have this really, really nearby explosion. And this is a fire that is so close to the person we see it in the canvas. But you've thrown it off onto the side over here. So it's kind of a displaced light, but what we need to do is make it the right necessary amount of value. Remember, you can use no man's land if you're drawing a light source. Write that back at me. No man's land is not allowed on skin tones or anything that is a material, unless you are drawing a flame, the sunlight, or a fire, like a flame, like a light source of any kind, like a light bulb. That's the only time no man's land can be used. Merge down, and then we have a necessary reflection. The closer you get to the light source, the stronger the reflection. The further away, the weaker the reflection. So these objects are further away than these objects, but these objects right here, they're perfectly susceptible to secondary light sources. So we've got this edge, and I'll clean it up in a second. Ow, my tooth really hurts. Damn. We've got this edge. We've got these edges. I'm just trying to make sense of the anatomy here. It's very, very tricky dealing with mechs. You kind of just have to remember to draw the cube as much as possible. You're missing out on the cube a lot, my friend. And you've got the ridge here. Like I can't render it all day long, but these areas here need their necessary reflection. So zoom in for detail work and then zoom right the hell back out, because you don't want to mess up the value jump, the value spectrum. You want to make sure that you get the right temperature. And some of these are going to be in cast shadow. Some of these are going to be a little bit less extreme. A lot of areas here could use some secondary light source, because this light is very, very strong, and you can reveal a lot of the form that's been lost from this explosion, from this core shadow. So you've got the main light coming in here, casting all the shadows this way, and then you've got this diffuse light, which is so bright. It's in the canvas. We need to represent its intensity and its effect on the forms around it. Really, really important to get a brush with an angle on it. This area here, not only is it a metallic material, but it's really close to the object, so it's got to have enough reflection on it. Don't forget about your angles. The more you think about form, the more you will draw realistically. All right? Any questions so far? Oops. I mean, I don't know what to do with this part here. I'll just do whatever. Okay. And merge that down. So before, after. Let me grayscale this so you can see the before and after on the grayscale level as well. Before, after. Before, after. Really prevalent light environment now. That is making a big difference. Where are you? before, after. Istebrak, can you repeat the relationship between values and the lower saturated colors? I have a video about this. It is called, let me find it. Yay, everybody vote for him, please. If you love me, vote for him. I can't vote because I'm not a citizen yet. Okay, videos. Let me see if I can find it for you. Come on, god damn, I have so many videos. Like, take a break, fucking try hard, busybody. How to properly transfer grayscale. Yeah, there it is. This explains it much better. And there's 33 minutes of it, and I can't spend 33 minutes explaining that, so you guys have that there. There's a reason why I upload these. Let me do something real quick. This is casting a shadow, but this is getting some light on it. Just like that. Nice. Okay, that's enough. But technically speaking, you can't go dark if you want saturation. You want saturation, it's got to be a daytime scene. So if you were thinking of fixing this to be a daytime scene, first of all, your colors are all wrong for the environment. Natural colors, sand, all of that live somewhere around here, around this range, and toward the yellows. That's pretty much soil for you. And then you've got to burn all the shadows back. That's kind of daytime. Do you see that, guys? And this would be, if this is like a mirror, like a glass, it's supposed to disorient your enemy, this is going to be all the way up here, because that's reflecting the light completely. And you would get a massive glow out of that. But that's not what you chose. I can't go changing the whole environment. I'll change the background. It'll be much easier for me than changing the entire environment. Okay? So let me do something so that it's more of an impact. No. There we go. So when I give this back to you, if you want it, you can really see the changes. Flatten. Save. Yes. Alright, as for this one, they are sitting in a dark room. There is no immediate light source, and yet we see them as if they're in a studio. Wrong, 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 wrong. I can't really talk about colors, like I have to save time. I mean, let me grayscale. No, I can't do that. I'll try. I'll try to keep the colors. I don't want to constantly grayscale. I'll try to keep the colors. I'll try to keep the colors. We would have something like this. And he would be much darker. He's in the distance. Darken. And then we gotta just fix up some stuff. So I'm gonna erase away a little bit off his back, off his arm. The light is coming through this little crack in the window curtain. Crack in the wind. A little bit on his jawline. This is the light coming through. So if you think of them as cubes, that's what's guiding me right now. It's not magic, it's cubes. Quote that. Cheeky buggers. Okay, so this is the cube of the head. The light is shining this way. The shadows are cast this way. So that's why the cheekbone, this, everything here is sitting on a cube. Okay. So any places that are interrupting that light shadow would be on her legs. And her legs are kind of just coming through. And the light is coming in. So you've chosen a pretty complicated light source situation, my friend. Flatten. Okay. And then of course her as well. Where's the cube of her face, and where's the light source coming in from there? So it would be a little bit on her arm, just as much as the shadow has come through. So the shadow's cast right here, the arm is coming through, and that arm gets some light on it. So you've chosen a dark room, excuse me, you've chosen a dark room, but you only know how to shade and draw in light rooms. You've only ever drawn Lightroom people, or you've drawn mostly Lightroom people. So you're gonna accidentally, it's just inevitable, you're gonna draw the wrong light source situation. This is a consistent problem. You see, we're constantly coming back to this problem. And then when you have cast shadows, you have saturation lines. Oopsie, saturate. Saturation lines along those cast shadows. And then all across the bottom here, we need some light. So excuse the harshness of this dodge tool. We need some light. Oops. Okay, and then we need to erase where that light is limited. So the light is limited around here. None of that business over here. Have some beautiful cast shadows that explain all this shadow as it is happening. Her foot is casting a shadow. Half her foot is going to be in shadow. A little bit of light on this foot, and then we've got those massive cast shadows. And we just gotta make them blurry. My bad. Let me use a soft brush. So do you guys see what I mean? When you think about the cube, everything, you find the answer to everything. And if this is a dusty room, light wouldn't be coming in by this way, by the way. The light is only coming in this way, so you need to darken this window's light. Because it's also part of a shadow. It's part of it's underneath a shadow. It's in a shadow environment. And this is a girl, right? Her legs need to be a little shinier. And then finally, liquefy some anatomy issues. We need to shrink the bottom half of her body because it's too big. Same with this guy. You're drawing really big legs. And a couple of issues here and there with the shoulders. Oops. Fuck. The eye is not symmetrical. You might want to give her a bit of a, she's drinking tea, probably worrying about when they're going to eat next. So you're kind of giving her, you're making her seem like she's posing for Vogue. You want to get rid of that smile. Maybe she's thinking about like her dad or something. I don't know. Because they're trying to find their dad like Katara. But I'm just going to go with the fact that she's sad right now. I'm just going to give her less of an expression on her mouth. More of an expressionless, deep in thought kind of thing. Sometimes when you're deep in thought, your brows don't really do anything. The mouth becomes closed a little bit. So before, after. Do you see what happened to the eyebrow? You want to know why you did this? Because it was coming close to the edge of the canvas. And you're like, shit, 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 shit. And then you just kind of compressed everything. Don't be afraid of the edge of the canvas. Give yourself some space and crop it later. Darken. And then erase away only what I need. So the side of the cube, which is the side of her foot, would get that light. And then smudge this. So you'll see the before and after, and you'll see that massive change. You'll kind of see what I mean with how fucking important it is to remember the light environment. What is it? What is it happening? Where is the light source? How is it affecting my cubes? It's not your character. It's not your original character. It's your cubes. All right. Sorry, I don't like it when you guys think that the character's backstory is going to carry the realism of your painting. What's going to carry the realism of your painting is the physics of this world that you have encapsulated and captured and used it to your advantage in the painting. You are creating a world, an earth in your painting. How can you possibly create a human being if you don't create the world that it comes in? The world that human being comes in is the light environment. And that's what we have to see first. We got to see the cast shadows. We got to see all that physics. All right? Couldn't vote for him even if I were American. I didn't want to start a debate. Just share with you. Just share this with you personally. Oh, sorry. Cops don't kill people. People kill people. 'Tis my OC. No more OC talk, okay? Your pretty little character's background is the character design backgrounds, your details, how much time you spent on her pretty shirt. That is not what's going to carry your painting. What's going to carry your painting is the light. Thinking about light. Yes, she is sad because she just hit her tooth with a cup. Let's see the before and after. Oops. Before, after. Now, which one draws you in more? And not just that, we gotta desaturate completely. So this is some fun stuff right now. Fuck. Where is it? We gotta desaturate a little bit. Damn it! The further out we go, the less light we have, the less colors we have. Everyone write that back at me. And then we saturate. Wherever there is light, there is saturation. So this bit here, her skin, everywhere else, there is more saturation because that's what the light is doing. I'm going to change the color of her skin because it's been on the wrong side of nowhere because of my stupid dodge tool use. Sorry, guys. No, that's too green. Okay. There we go. Merge down. Less light equals less color. Please say it again. Less light, less color. The further out we go, the less color we have, the less light. Not the further out we go, it's just deeper into the room, it gets darker in there, so there's less light, so there's less color. More color, more light, more color saturation. Excellent. Thank you, Enthusiasm. Any questions? I think she lost weight in the after. Yeah, because of her legs. Her legs were a bit large for her body. Okay, so that's that for that. Flat image. So can anyone summarize everything that we learned so far in this painting and the painting before? Can anyone write a quick blurb about it while I choose my next one? So these are all faces. Okay. Freaking assembly line today. You are great, master. Is that directed at me, Noise? Yeah, if the sun isn't so bright, you wouldn't have such high saturation and you wouldn't have such sharp cast shadows. You would have a more desaturated wash over the entire image. This means that you wouldn't have those pretty colors in there. The red wouldn't be so red, the brown wouldn't be so brown. Skin colors would look a little bit more washed out. So you always have to ask yourself, what time of day is it? Pay attention to light, color, and saturation. Thank you, Kuro. More light means more saturation of color. Cubes first, pretty character design later. Thank you, Anthu. I keep smacking stuff in my fucking teacup. Okay, so this one is for Emmanuel. I'm going to do his first because he doesn't usually upload. And this is beautiful, beautiful work. I just want to show you a little something, though. Makeup contour. So images. So let's look at how girls trick people into thinking they're pretty. um, this is her before they blended. They actually get a shade that is 3 times less than your shade. And they contour with it. And it's just a common practice. It reshapes your face, makes your nose look quote unquote skinnier, and you basically rechange the bone structure of your face. So this is something exaggerated in today's world that causes a complete resculpt of one's face. And they're exaggerated for that purpose. However, you gotta know when you're drawing makeup and when you're not. So you can see the bones are a little bit more, the sides of the nose are way more pronounced here than they are here. So just be aware, Manuel, and anyone else currently studying how to shade faces on grayscale tone, remember when you're drawing natural contours and when you're drawing makeup, what we have here is a real sort of like a representation of that. So I'm going to use soft brush. Soft brush is great for blending skin. It's funny because in makeup you also get a soft brush for blending skin. It's called a blending brush. You can look it up. It's real stuff. I'm not lying. So what I want to do is represent a less artificial contour and a more natural blending and curving of the axis. Remember that lips only get this dark when there is makeup. Lips do not get this dark when there is no makeup, when the lips are a skin color or close to a skin shade. So I'm going to teach you basically no makeup, and then you can add in makeup later if you want. But know when you're drawing makeup and know when you're not. Be aware of it. Don't accidentally do stuff. It's not a graceful rendering method like that. You gotta know what you're doing, the ins and outs of all the choices you make with your brush behavior. When it comes to lips, please don't create solid lines. Again, this was inherited from the use of a dark tone for the lips. You want to blend as much as possible the edges of the lips because they are not that much separated from the tone of the lip, of the skin, of the lip skin surrounding the lips. So it's not immediate face skin, it's still lip skin, and it's not that much darker. Okay. Make sure your edges are all following, make sure everything is following the symmetry line. Your lips feel kind of flat. Make it feel like we're really looking at the side of the bulge of the lips, so we need to see a little something like that. Careful with your shadows. Make sure all your shadows have the same temperature and there is less contrast the lower you go. Keep the edges sharp where there is a real edge. Everything else is tapered because we are connecting around the curves. This is fat, this is fat, but this is bone, so that's why we get this sharp edge right here. We're not blending, but you can't have that everywhere. I'm going to use darken layer to decrease the contrast just around the base here. And I'm going to erase away the darkened layer only where I know that I am getting an illumination. And these areas are as follows: the upper lip, the chin, and the lower lip. The upper lip is, however, darker than the lower lip, but you got to get that right level where it doesn't feel like she's wearing makeup only on her upper lip. So I am using a soft brush. If this was my painting, I wouldn't start the painting with a soft brush. I would definitely start it with a hard chalk brush or something. More texture in it. Soft brush really kind of just, it's not the best for edges, and you kind of want to get all the edges down early on in your painting. This fat is on the bottom, not on the side of the lip. So the bulge that you're trying to show off here on the edge is a little bit more toward the bottom, this way, right beside the chin. Okay, and then now we can talk about the real areas that need all that dark. So when we're talking about the edge of the lip, don't just draw it, because basically you're just drawing around a cartoon lip. That's what you did here. This little thing, that's a cartoon lip. That's not a representation of a depression. We got to slowly build the cave downward, and then use the darks only where we really need them. So just along the bottom of the lip, the edge of the lip. My cat just puked a hairball. I hope you guys didn't hear that. This is the only area, and again, we gotta be really careful not to draw that cartoon lip. And just jump in. Some edges are needed just along here. I'm gonna have to fix the shape of the lip a little bit, but you are working with some cartoony influences. It could be because of lines, it could be because of a sort of a history starting off with lines instead of anything kind of like organic, straight realism. And we have the bottom of this lip. My eye is always on the navigator, making sure my values are telling the right story about the levels and the contours, but you can always zoom out as well. Remember, we're being very sparing with the shadows that we're choosing. I'm very, very careful. So this temperature of this cast shadow should be the temperature of this cast shadow with a little bit more. And the further a cast shadow gets from its owner, the fuzzier it gets. So you got to fuzz out the base of the nose cast shadow just a little bit. And then you got the Cupid's bow side that we can see. And it's a tiny little diffusion. The nose edge cannot be represented with a line. You have to give it a shade, and that shade ends when the nose ends. The nose will look instantly more realistic. And I know this is not finished yet. I know there's more work to do. So now I'm going to bring in some contrast, but I'm only allowing it to exist in areas where I know that it can afford contrast. So the highest point of the lips, the top of the lip, the highest point of this lip area here, where I know the light can reach. The highest point of the chin. Now zooming out, the highest point of the cheeks. And you see how we're sculpting very, very carefully, introducing one gray at a time. We're not going gung-ho with the contrast because, well, yeah, that reads quickly. No, it doesn't read quickly. It floods out your form before you even have a chance to build it. Everyone write that back to me. So the bottom of the nose, I'm going to lighten it up just a little bit. Lighten layer does the trick. But I'm going to erase away the nostrils because I know the nostrils need to stay dark. They are dark spots. They are actual cavities in the face that we cannot afford for them to be light, or else it does not read as a functioning nose and all that a nose is supposed to be, which is the place you can put your finger. Okay. Darkening that just a little bit. Contrast floods out the form, yes, because you're using too much blacks. I'm placing in some shadows in between the brows. And I'm going to jump into liquify now. Give the brows less of a cartoony expression. Again, with the cartoony influence, Emmanuel, you might want to start working from references because you want to record more organic patterns in human features. You want to record a more realistic eyebrow so that you can, always work between your style and realism, and you never, but work between one artist's style and what you know. You're bound for defeat at that point because you're not really thinking about the real organic patterns. You're copying what another artist did, and he's a copy of another artist, and then you're just going to create this big chain of misinterpretation of physics and art and anatomy and art. So I'm giving the lips less of a cartoony set. Giving the nose a little bit more three-dimensional quality, keeping it symmetrical. And we're starting to get a more realistic sculpting here. So to save time, I'm going to use Burn Tool on shadows with Protect Tones on. What it's going to do is only burn the shadows for me. I don't have time to go through every shadow and burn it. And now we have an appropriate distribution of contrast that wasn't as severe as before. Less makeup, less definition. Artificial definition, which is what makeup is. Artificial definition. Everyone write that back at me. Makeup is... I'm gonna blend this part. You don't need an edge around the head. Sometimes just go in and fearlessly blend it with the neck, because that's what it is. It's still skin connecting the neck and the head together. And this beard right here, this is needed in every shape you draw, because this is the beard, the core shadow beard. And when I say we need everything on the same temperature, I mean make sure all of the cast shadows, lighten, have the same level, the same temperature moving across. Because it's still the same face, it's still the same distance between us and them, between us and that. Merge down, make sure to follow the contours. Brows get a little bit illuminated under the light, and there's even more work to be done here. Edge work is really, really important. So what you created manual, you're still on the level where you're practicing, blending and structure and outlining. Sometimes just let go of that safe, the sandboxy form of exploring form. Instead, just go in there and start sculpting without thinking about any line influences. This edge here needs to be a little harder, because that's really what's going to get that sculpted, realistic skin feel. So filter, sharpen, unsharp mask. I did use a soft brush. I apologize for the texture. That's why I'm resharpening. But let's look at the before and after. Before, after. So very cartoony, and that's fine, because we see that in a lot of comic book, old age, Frank Frazetta type sculpting. But looking at the lips, looking at the eyebrows, looking at the eyes, I can't help but think that there is a severe influence of symbols in your image and less of a sculpting attitude in your painting. So comic book, half flat, forced form, and a more natural sculpted form. And you have to work toward that in your own style, in your own way. You have to work toward that. Before, it reads just fine, but it was a sculpted feel. It was a contour, makeup contours. It felt more like you were painting this stage without blending them. So you were painting this stage of her makeup, this one, not this one. You kind of want to work towards this one. It felt like it needed one last push. You were painting here where the end result was this. And this is done when you blend. Okay? You can bring her strong jawbone back, but it was much too strong, representing a severe edge, a severe obtuse edge in the painting. Okay, so flatten. Let me try something real quick. Sort of like a hybrid of both. Still looks good. Right. Okay, so do I have time? What you have here, this looks like a belly button, and you're trying to work symbolically, and that's acceptable, that's fine. You're working symbolically, but when you work symbolically and then all of a sudden you give me something that reads so immediately as a belly button or a nostril, that's when the symbolic becomes uncanny. So what you gotta do is, just as much as you went full out style in that part of the face, you gotta go full out style everything else, everywhere else. You gotta keep it consistent so it can read as the subject that it's supposed to read, which is a mouth and not a belly button or a nostril. At least that's what I think. I think that's a mouth, right? I'm not like seeing something else, some Picasso stuff. Right, so before it really felt like a belly button. And then after. Because, like, what was he doing really? What was the expression? What's the intended expression in the before? It was just like, you know, like the anime open mouth, kind of big-eyed. You know that anime, like, almost open mouth kind of thing? Maybe he was doing that, but you were shading realistically. Look at these contours, and you were adding really, I'm going to burn your eyes. You were adding really realistic beard texture, but then we had this belly button we couldn't help but see as a belly button because everything else was realistically painted. So it no longer reads as that. That's a realistic Homer Simpson. I pull him out every time I want to talk about what happens when you use the wrong kind of texture or the wrong kind of outline, I guess, or form. You use something symbolic on realistic textures, you get the uncanny. Familiar on the unfamiliar. Or familiar on the symbolic. And that's where you were. That realistic beard, I just felt like he had a belly button in his mouth. Before, after. You gotta work, you gotta know when you're doing symbol. So say it like this. Say features and eyes and hair. I'm gonna make it all symbolic. Skin and fur coat and his hat, I'm gonna make it all realistic. That's nice, but you gotta limit it in its own you know, in its own borders. You can't bring in a realistic mouth. You can't just bring in like a super realistic mouth, you know, like not with the red lipstick. Sorry, fuck, I messed up. But you can't bring in a realistic shadow for the mouth unless you know for sure that you're going to do the same thing everywhere else. You're going to get rid of the line. And then it's just going to look like Paranorman style, which is an amazing style I want to show you. They really stylized it. They kept the original sketches. They kept the original sketches of the features, but they sculpted them. So everything was still unrealistic and funny and really beautiful caricatures, but there were no lines, of course, because it's realistic. And I think it's 3D printing what they did with this. And it still looked real. So you can do this face on this. Just remember that it's going to be read as real. And if you're giving me a belly button, that's what I'm going to see. Cancel, flatten, escape. Okay. And then we've got Fuchsia's Majin Buu. So it was his turn, but he switched. So let's see. Okay, so John, you know you got to get rid of the lines, so that's a given. I'm not going to mess with you on that. But the background is gray, so you've got no light environment, but you've got this color for the metal. And it's not reading as metal, it's reading as like a really retro car color. Like, you ever seen those plasti-dipped cars where they have this like really, really neon colors? So if you want his armor to read without a light environment, with a light environment, but without any immediate colors affecting it, the background is basically gray. So this is a character design. So what I recommend is this. It will instantly read better. There is more to, there is a lot of color and textures than just the rendering. Maybe you didn't see the color. I'm going to just make it a little bit more gray. And then before, after. This feels to me more like armor than what we had before, which felt like car parts. Let me show you what I mean. YouTube. Oh no, not YouTube. Plasti. I don't know why they're fucking giving me a Jennifer Lopez piece of shit Vivo. I don't even fucking know her. Plasti dip car. Stupid old hag. Go to sleep. So let me see. This is really what I see when we have metallics that are colored too much. Too much color in metallics feels like very retro. And if you're going for retro, by all means, go crazy. But it seems like you're trying to overlap different themes. So you're trying to give a medieval theme on Patrick. Is that who this is, Patrick? So that's kind of what I mean. This as well, color brought in too much color brought in on. I wish I could plastic dip my car. Anyways, that's kind of all I have here. You might want to think about the high points of his eyes. This high point here, the high point of his chin. So what we will see is, let's see, soft light. So we see more of highlights brought in on this side. That's the wrong color. Push it to yellow. That's too much yellow. Just along here. So it feels like he's really, the light is really shining on him, and these are the high points that the light is shining on. I'll desaturate in a second, but I'm just going to use dodge tool. Do you see what I mean, John? Maybe you can give us a cast shadow here. Just like that. But of course, everything is diffused the lower you go. So this is lighter than this, and this is lighter than this. And this is secondary light source that's causing this highlight. And you gotta really get rid of these lines. Don't even paint with them on, because they will sneakily change the way you choose your colors. Just completely get rid of them. Even in your rendering, you only need them so long. And John, decrease the opacity of your line layer if you need it to guide you temporarily. Decrease the opacity. That'll also be much easier to paint it away, because then you just got black everywhere. You gotta fix and clean up. And then because he's a shiny little tentacle or something, you might want to throw in more of those reflections just around. And then the secondary light source reflection around here. I'll desaturate it in a second. Sorry guys, I'm not looking at the chat. I'll look in 1 second. Color. And flatten. And this you gotta find the edge. So you're thinking about the cube, right? You gotta find where the edge is. So let's say that he isn't a perfect cylinder, so right? So this is like a tentacle, and Patrick is pretty much a cylinder. I'm gonna pretend that it's not Patrick. I'm just gonna pretend like it's a Majin Buu type thing. Let's not imagine it as a perfect cylinder. Let's imagine it as a cylindrical cube. So it's got like a round edge, but it's also got a minor edge to it. So he has that little bit of an edge right here. So that would be this. So the secondary light source has a specific edge it starts not crossing over, because hey, there's an angle here that isn't letting the light travel in. It's like, oh, light can't just bend. Light can't come around, ooh, never mind, I want this place. No, it doesn't do that. Light just comes in and goes, whoop, whoop. That's all light does, is it reflects, it doesn't bend. So the side of his brows right here, this bit is a bit rounded, and the side of his tentacle here, that's all secondary light source. Whoopsie. Okay, then we're getting rid of the lines. You really don't need the lines after a certain while. And then most importantly, because remember that stuff we talked about all day already, is the light environment, making sure what time of day it is, John. So if the daytime is too dark, if the area around him is too dark, then we're going to be like, okay, well, why is he so visible if it's dark? And our eyes are going to see better. Damn it. Our eyes are going to know better, I mean. Flatten image. So what we need to do is lighten all of these areas here. So it can make it feel like, hey, that his armor is reflecting something, right? His armor is reflecting the daytime. It's got to be pretty light in the day for his armor to reflect that much. And that way we make sense of the choices we make with our contrast ladder, our grayscale ladder. We got to show those hot spots because this is a reflective material and those hot spots climb. So I feel like you're a little timid and a little shy with your shading. Don't be afraid. Take my hand. And there's going to be areas that are just a gradient instead of a perfect shine. And because of the secondary light source, there might be a bit of a shadow. Just moving along here. And the secondary light source has a color to it, so it's not just, you know, there on the color or the local color of the object. You choose the color of the light source, and that's going to be the color that we see in all of this stuff. So we see a white as the source of the light source here. And that could be like a fire, or it could be someone else's shield beside him causing this secondary light source. But if it's the primary light source, if it's the sunlight, it's not white, it's yellow-white. So you got to remember that as well. That's kind of the color I want to see used. And flatten. And then there's the saturation that you've used. You've used too much saturation so far. You need to be careful with your saturation. And everyone write this back at me. As much as you are careful with your colors. See how dark you made his skin? It was because the background was too dark. You want to be able to paint a character design in a friendly environment, in a renderable environment, meaning like a you know, not renderable. What the hell am I saying? Like an environment where we can see him because it's a character design, and you want to submit this to like a design group or a modeler. You want them to be able to see it. If you're going to a photo shoot or a fashion show, are you going to choose nighttime with very little light? No, because what are they going to see? They're not going to see squat. I'm just increasing that on the other side over there. Need to get my handy dandy brush. A lot more realism. And when you're drawing anything metallic that is a hard substance, that isn't fur or grass, that it's like rock or metal, you gotta make the edges as clean as humanly possible. You know what? This is how clean you need it. I'm gonna get my hard round brush from Photoshop, and that's exactly the brush I need for this tool, for this job. Because it's not skin. The edge of your face, the edge of a cheekbone can be, you know, you can use a soft brush for that because skin has little tiny hairs and it's got micro texture. But there's no tiny hairs on metal, is there? So we've got to make it nice and clean. And that's why you got to get rid of your lines, John, early. Because there's going to be a lot of stuff you're not going to need your lines for anymore. I'm rendering a lot. I'm pushing the render a lot because it's a matter of your order of your work, not how much time you spend. It's a matter of the order in which you render. This dark is too dark. This edge here, I really want to get rid of it, but I've got no time. Fuck it. Not sure what these are. Those his eyebrows. They're facing up at the light, so there wouldn't be any shadow in that area. Light shining down. It's always like the best kind of light source you want. The light shining down. It really just lets the shadows be gentle. It's not like a spooky, scary story time light from down, up. Light from bottom up, down up. Gonna give him a bit of a cheekbone. See a bit of the chin. Gonna get my soft brush back. And that's really a push and pull. It's a tug of war with your painting. Balancing colors, because you gotta think about color. You gotta think about grayscales. You gotta think about form and the z-axis. You gotta think about the light environment. That's a lot of shit to think about that makes life so hard and makes art so difficult to do. But once you get it, it'll read. Side of his cheekbone here. We'll get some secondary light source. Sorry, I never looked at the chat, did I? I'm sorry. Okay, so it's a bit low res. I'm just going to do one more graying out of the armor. So it feels a lot like armor. And fix up the colors a little bit. Okay. Flatten. Before. So it's still early. After. A lot more realism. That's solely because we got rid of the lines and we brought in a secondary light source that proved that this is a three-dimensional object. It's really low res, guys, sorry. So before, after. Especially that purple, it looked like a car, like I showed you guys. It looked too metallic and neon. It wasn't giving off the right feeling of like an age-old iron armor or whatever they had back then. Steel or whatever. And that's kind of how you work your way toward realism, making sure that you're not using too much saturation. Too much saturation is very cartoony. It isn't realistic. And too many lines flattens your form. That isn't realistic. Using only one light source and flooding out the shadows and flooding out the form, that isn't realistic either. There's bounce light everywhere. On your face right now, and don't be scared, you have secondary light source. There's a secondary light source on your face somewhere. Don't be scared. Relax. It's not a bug. Okay? That's it for today. There was a lot. I'm losing my voice. Sorry, I'll get to this next time. That is more painterly stuff, so it's completely off topic. Have a great day, guys. Bye.